All right, so today we're going to talk about the psychology of fat loss. And the core concept here is that no matter how good your plan is, if you don't change your behaviors, the physiological changes can't happen. So you could have the best plan in the world, but if you don't change what you're doing and how you're doing it, and you don't do things consistently, the results are not going to happen. So if we look at our overall formula, we've got our two key solutions. We've got our effective plan, so it's our adaptive rapid fat loss formula. And then we've got actually doing it consistently, aka our levels formula for sustainable fat loss. So what you want when you come in to a fat loss phase is results. You want fat loss results. Now, below that, we have behaviors. So this is what you need to do to get those results. You need to do the workouts. You need to eat the foods. You need to sleep. You need to be in a caloric deficit. We need to hit each of these different behaviors in order to get the results we want. Now, beyond that, we have habits. So this is how we consistently do those behaviors. So this is an ingrained habit of behaviors. It's something that we do consistently. And usually this is where most people stop. However, there's a deeper layer, another layer that's necessary for sustainable fat loss. So habits are great for fat loss period, but if you want sustainable fat loss, we need to have this additional layer. And we call these pieces in this additional layer systems. So, when we talk about systems, we're talking about what it takes to make your habits resilient to life's chaos. So, these are the missing links for most people for sustainable fat loss, and it's why the habits don't stick over the long term. Another word you could use for this is adherence simplifiers. So, essentially, they're things that make it simpler or easier to stick to the plan. Now, when we look at our overall breakdown, most people have heard the abs are made 80% in the kitchen, 20% in the gym, but we actually take that a step further and our workouts, our nutrition, our sleep, our stress management, all of those strategies or those habits and behaviors are actually only 30% of the equation. And the other 70% is made up by these systems or these adherence simplifiers. So it's all of the other things that drive your behavior. Those are the things that actually make up the majority of the equation. And then once those are in place, it's easy to stick to. It's easy to do the workouts. It's easy to have the nutrition if you've got these systems or these adherence simplifiers in place. So we have this acronym levels, which describes this formula. So leverage, we've got our ability to make this work financially, time wise, our energy, figuring out what resources we want to use. We've got our environment, our internal mental environment, our social environment, and our physical environment. Then we have our values. So what you believe, what you prioritize. Then we've got enjoyment. So do you actually enjoy what you're doing? And then finally, we have our logistics, which is the way the plan fits into your schedule. And then as part of the levels formula, we include the strategy here. But really, for the majority of this video, we're talking about the first five components, the level piece of the formula, and then the strategy we'll talk about in the adaptive rapid fat loss video. So, concept number one is leverage. So, when it comes to leverage, we need to make sure that we're actually looking at what is our life resource balance right now. So, most people don't consider this the way they should, but it's a crucial factor. It's something I realized when our physical gyms went through the pandemic and I got stressed out like crazy. We had two kids in that same time frame. My leverage went significantly down when it comes to time and when it comes to money, and my fitness suffered. Now, I only gained 5 pounds instead of 50, but there is a noticeable difference when you lose leverage in your life. So, leverage, to really put it simply, is how much money you have, how much time you have, and how much mental attention you have. So, how do you want to use these resources? Do you even have these resources? And what's the best distribution of these resources in your life? If you can get your leverage right, you will get the results you want. However, if you don't have leverage, you need to reset your expectations and not expect to do something that is impossible, which is getting results without any time, without any money, without any mental attention. So we need to figure out what's that balance. So if you're super tapped out with work, you're really busy, you've got no mental attention available or minimal attention available, you need to spend more money to get help. You need to pay for somebody to do food prep. You need to pay for a program that's designed to get you the results you want. Or if you're tapped out for money, you've got no money, but you have some time, you need to spend the time to learn, to research. This is what I did when I was 21. I started getting into working out and I did a ton of research. Over the last 15 years, I've done a ton of research to get there. But as my financial leverage improved when I had a job and as we got the business going and started to make some money, I put money into it and paid people to teach me the best way to do things. And then finally, we have mental attention. So, mental attention is basically how much ability you have to think and process. So, I kind of covered that with time, but mental attention and time often go together. These are the resources we have at our disposal. And based on what we have at our disposal, we then set our expectations for what we can achieve. If we have a lot of time, a lot of money, we can probably get some pretty fast results. If we don't have much time and mental attention or money, we need to set our expectations lower and go slower. And this is going to prevent us from getting discouraged, which is one of our biggest causes of failure. So that's our leverage concept. There's obviously lots more I could say on it, but we'll keep it short. That's leverage. Next up, we have our environment. So this is our mental internal environment, our social environment, and our physical environment. And this is a huge driver. I would bet that this is somewhere around 30% of the equation for you as far as habit adherence. Once we've got leverage in place, that's kind of like the do not pass go if you don't have leverage. Once we're into the actual plan, environment is going to be a significant driver of our results. I'm sure you've heard the saying, you're the average of the 5 people you're around most, and that's our social environment. You've also probably heard of the importance of mindset. That's our internal environment. And then your physical space around you, that's our physical environment. So, how is your house set up? Do you have a bunch of cookies and chips in the cupboard, or do you have an environment that's conducive to your results? Do you have reminders and motivators? So, I've got a couple of books behind me that are reminders. This book, The One Thing, reminds me to focus on one thing. That's a physical environment modification that's going to help me be more successful in staying focused, not letting my attention get spread thin. So your environment is crucial to set up, and it's one of the massive, massive keys to success that most people forget about and most people underestimate. Next up, we have our values. So, when it comes to our values, our big thing we want to think about is how do your values align with your goals? If you have a goal to get in shape and it conflicts with your ability to care for your children, or it conflicts with your ability to see the people you care about most, so you have a chance to go for a workout, or you could go see your friends that you haven't seen in months that are your best friends in the world. Which one are you going to pick? Of course, you're going to pick the one that aligns with your values. So we need to be very intentional and careful in how we set up our values and make them align with our workout goals. Or more so on the flip side, we actually want to make our goals align with our values. So if you value quality time with friends, how can you make your workout goals oriented towards that? So maybe you like going for hikes with your friends, or you want to do some kind of physical activity with them. That then ties your fitness goal and your desire to get in shape to that value of caring about the people you're around. Or maybe it's to have the most energy possible for your kids. So you go work out to have that peak energy, or you do food prep so that you've got the food and the fuel that you need to have good energy through the day, or you sleep well to make sure that you are getting rest and have peak energy when you're hanging out with your kids. Whatever that value is, there's obviously, again, a million examples of this. We need to make sure that those are aligned and not butting heads, not in conflict, because if they butt heads, if they're in conflict, the things you care about most in life are going to win out over your fitness goal. Next up is enjoyment. So, when we think about fitness and fat loss, one of the biggest obstacles we see is that it simply feels tedious or it feels unenjoyable. Most people think about going to work out and they think, oh, I don't want to go work out. So, of course, they're not going to do it. So, this enjoyment factor is crucial. Now, how do we manage our enjoyment? We have two main things. Number one is to find something you enjoy. So, pretty self explanatory there, but we want to look for the things that actually make a workout enjoyable. So is it a social community? Is it the environment? We have superhero theme in one of our gyms, and so that makes people that like superheroes enjoy going there. What can you do to make the workout enjoyable? Maybe it's even as simple as you find a protein shake you really like, or maybe there's a treat you have that you indulge in after your workout to make it enjoyable. What is that enjoyment factor? Likewise for nutrition. Are you eating bland food that you hate and it's overcooked broccoli that's soaking wet and soggy, and maybe it's burnt chicken? That's not going to be appealing. We need to make it something you enjoy, and maybe you need to invest in some cooking classes. Maybe you need to get a plan that includes meals you actually enjoy, which is one of the things we offer. Whatever it is, you need to make sure that you enjoy what you're doing, or you're not going to stick with it. Now, I mentioned there was two ways to make yourself enjoy it. So, number one is just simply find things you enjoy. The second is to focus on the benefits of what you're doing. So, if you think of the workout and you think of all the time it's going to take, you're going to get sweaty, it's going to be uncomfortable, maybe you feel awkward because you don't know what you're doing. Those are things you can focus on. Those are true of a workout. But you could also focus on the energy you get afterwards. Once you're past that first 2 weeks, you get energized from that workout. You could think of the sense of accomplishment you get after. You could think of how that warm shower, that cool shower feels after your workout when it's pouring down on those sore, tired muscles. And it feels really good. That's one of my favorite things about working out. Likewise, with the nutrition, you can go through that same process. What we focus on dictates what we enjoy. So, do you actually enjoy it because you are focusing on the things that make it enjoyable to you or focusing on the benefits? There are benefits and downsides to every single thing you do. What dictates whether it's enjoyable or not is what you focus on with those. And then finally, when we get to our logistics, this is basically just simply how does it fit into your schedule? So if you've got kids baseball or soccer or hockey or whatever else, or you're working a certain number of hours, does it actually fit into your schedule? Does it give you the does it make the things in your life work for you? If it doesn't, it's going to be in conflict. And what are you going to choose? Again, your kids' recreational sports, your career, or this fitness goal that you have that's brand new to you. We want it to be important to us, but it's brand new. It's not the most important thing in our life at this point, as much as we'd like it to be. How is that going to work? We need to make those logistics work. And that could mean that you adjust something. Maybe you get your kid to carpool to the soccer practice twice a week. And that's the sacrifice you make because that values connection. You've decided that prioritizing your health and being around for your kid when they have children and you can be a grandparent, maybe that's important to you, but we need to make sure that logistical equation is dealt with. A lot of times people will do something for 4 weeks or for 8 weeks or whatever, and they are doing it in a completely unsustainable way. They're cramming it into their schedule without actually making the logistics work. And that works for 4 weeks, it works for 8 weeks. But then life comes back and you drift off track because it was never logistically fit into your schedule. So this is absolutely crucial. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is that we make sure we have these pieces in place. So that is our level system. Again, I mentioned we have the strategy component as our last piece, but we're not going to cover that today. That is part of what we'll cover with the adaptive rapid fat loss, but it is part of the overall equation of fat loss.